YouTube, I'm Jack Clark, the Musketeer, coming to you with another video. How are you? So today I'm going to be talking about the new Lightsworn monsters. I know, I'm pretty late for the party as it goes, but I told myself that I'm only going to be talking about the new Lightsworn monsters that will be coming out in the OCG when they were all actually, well, confirmed, because of course we had the Synchro monster of all of the three, which is all shrouded in Photoshop blurs, and we were like, oh, this is going to be interesting, and then of course people got a little bit too impatient and started talking about the other two monsters, so any kind of relevant and, well, meaningful discussion has probably already been had on those, but I'm still going to give you my opinion because I wanted to talk about all three cards and how they all kind of work together and what they can do for Lightsworns in general. Especially considering Michael, the Lightsworn Synchro, which I'm going to be talking about today, is particularly interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how it interacts with Lightsworns and how it could potentially make the Lightsworn deck better. But that's, of course, all hypothetical mumbo-jumbo. But anyway, of course, in the description down below, any cards that I do talk about in today's video, you can go check those out in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Create links, and you can go check them out in all their lovely details and stuff and words and things. So let's move on. We've got Minerva, Lightsworn Maiden first, which is, of course, a spellcaster tuner monster light with 3 stars and has 800 attack and 200 defense. Its effect is as follows. When this card is normal summoned, you can add 1 light dragon type monster from your deck to your hand whose level is equal to or less than the number of Lightsworn monsters with different names in your graveyard. Secondary effect is that when it's sent from your hand or deck to the graveyard, you can send the top card of your deck to the graveyard. And of course, like most Lightsworns, it has a mill 2 effect at the end of the turn. So this has got 2 main effects, and this is kind of an underwhelming card. Being a level 3 tuner, it's really quite nice, and you will be most likely utilising it alongside Lumina, which of course can summon it. So you'll be able to go for a level 6 Synchro, so you could go for, what, HTS Sahemoth for banishing stuff, I guess Vulcan the Divine, Gaianite, but yes, you're not really going to be using this mainly for Synchros at all, really. You may utilise it, I don't know, it's a level 3 tuner monster, so you could use it for rank 3s potentially with Lumina or whatever, but its main utility isn't the fact that it's a tuner, it's the fact that, of course, when it's normal summoned, you can add a light dragon type monster from your deck to hand, of course, if its level is equal to or less than the number of Lightsworn monsters with different names in your graveyard. Yes. So, the main thing, a problem with that effect, which everyone's already pointed out, is that actually you have to have 8 different Lightsworns in your graveyard already, which by then is probably going to be quite late game, so summoning this quite late game is not really going to be very, well, consistent at all. This is a very weak monster, and if you draw this early on in the game, which is going to be quite relevant, or if you just mill it, then you're not going to be able to use the effect. So the first effect is very rarely going to ever go off, but really what makes this card an interesting card is the fact that it's an additional Lightsworn name. So yeah, maybe you will get this card's first effect off and search for a Judgment Dragon, but it's unlikely, really, isn't it? But it's got an additional effect that when it's sent from the hand to the deck to the graveyard, you can mill another card, which is nice. So even though the first effect is unlikely to go off, it means that, of course, if you do draw it early on, you can, discard it for Solar Recharge and then get an additional mill. So any additional mills is nice. Plus it's got a mill 2 effect, like always, but it allows you to mill additional cards. So if you get it and get it too early and you're not able to use this effect, then don't worry, you can use it for another purpose and actually mill more with it. So it's not going to be a completely useless card if you can't use the first effect. But because of that, you're not really going to use it in any more quantities than just 1, because in addition to, well, not being able to use its first effect very consistently, it's another name, and having any more than 1 is kind of you don't need more than 1 Minerva, because it would just be the odd occasion that you actually get its first effect off. But it's a nice card, it's quite a quirky card, and of course being a level 3 tuner means level 6s and whatever, and of course you can use it for rank 3s alongside Lumina, which is also another thing which is quite nice. But let's move on to the next card, and that is Raiden, Lightsworn Assailant. It is the Light Warrior tuner monster, level 4, 1700 attack, 1000 defense. Its effect is as follows. During your main phase, you can send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, and there's a Lightsworn monster among those cards, then it gains 200 attack points until your opponent's end phase. You can only use this effect of Raiden, Lightsworn Assailant once per turn, and of course it has the generic Lightsworn effect of milling 2 at the end of your turn. 1700 attack, which could potentially go to 1900, which is relatively nice, I guess, but the reason that this is a good card and why I really like it is not because, of course, it becomes a 1900 attack point beater. That's really quite inconsequential. The fact is that it can actually mill, and you can mill as an effect and not as a cost, and you can mill during the main phase, which is the most key thing about this card, is that it mills during the main phase, which Lightsworns were really lacking. Of course, all their mills happened in the end phase, which is, that's fine, I mean, you want to mill, and any milling is good milling, but the fact that you can do it during the main phase means you can actually control well, not necessarily what you're milling, but then what you do and the actions you take after the milling happens. So summon Raiden, you can use this effect and mill 2, and then of course if you milled additional name that you needed to summon the JD, you can then summon the JD that turn, instead of having to rely on end phase effects and then what? Oh yes, I've just got my last name into the graveyard, but it's my end phase, so I can't summon the JD in my hand and nuke the field. So that's kind of sucky. But the fact is, it can summon during the main phase. And the only other card that Lightsworns had that could do this was Celestia. But its milling effect was, of course, part and parcel of it being tribute summoned, which was quite difficult to do and didn't happen very often. But also it was the cost, which means it couldn't be used alongside stuff like Gareth, Lightsworn Warrior, which this card can be, because you have this card and Gareth on the field, use this card's effect to mill, and if you mill a Lightsworn monster, then you get to use Gareth's effect, and you can use its effect to mill 2 more cards and then draw stuff. So it's quite nice to use it alongside of Gareth, and the fact that it mills during the main phase as an effect is also just the nicest thing, really, because like, yeah, you get you mill a wolf, so it then special summons itself, and then you can then tune it for a level 8, which is really nice. So this is going to be the card that's actually going to be used in Lightsworn decks from this new release, which is quite interesting, and I like it the most. It's simple, and it's what they need, really. It's in phase milling. Of course, what Lightsworns really need is consistency, but everyone knows what happened with Charger, the Light Brigade being at any more than 1. They don't need any more support, but they're getting it anyway. But anyway, let's talk about the last card. The last but not least, we have Michael Lightsworn Lord, which, of course, if you don't know, is a light dragon synchro monster, level 7, 2600 attack, 2000 defense, and its requirements are 1 tuner plus 1 and 1 tuner light monsters. So it can be used in cards in decks outside of Lightsworns. Of course, it has 3 effects. The last effect, of course, being a mill 3 at the end of the turn, like most Lightsworns have. The first effect is that once per turn you can pay 1000 life points and target a monster on the field and then banish it face up. So if you can't use this for its intended purpose, it's not actually that bad a card. Lumina plus Raiden equals this card, and that can be quite an easy thing to do, simply because you'll be using, maximum copies of Lumina, and you may be using 2 or 3 copies of Raiden. So this card is quite easy to make in Lightsworn, in addition to the fact that Raiden alongside Lumina gives Lightsworns access to Black Rose nukes if they can't rely solely on the JD nukes, and of course Ancient Sacred Wyvern. For those of you who've used Ancient Sacred Wyvern, attack for 9000 damage, it's just a lovely OTK card, so it gives Lightsworns more options. But this is also another good option for Lightsworns to have, because it can just, oh no, they've got a problem monster on the field which I can't deal with, then I can just banish it, which is really quite nice on its own. 1000 life points for its cost may seem quite steep in comparison to Judgment Dragon, but this card's not meant to be compared to Judgment Dragon, it's meant to support it, and of course it's meant to contrast directly with it. Its secondary effect is what really is kind of what the card is meant to do, is that when it's destroyed you can target any number of Lightsworn monsters in your graveyard, return them to your deck, and then of course you gain 300 life points for each card you returned in this way. You can't return a card called Michael Lightsworn Lord, however, but that's kind of inconsequential. What you're going to mainly want to be doing with this card, and what the intended play is with this card, is that you'll have this card on the field, you'll summon a Judgment Dragon, and then you'll nuke the field, destroying your Michael Lightsworn Lord, and then of course its effect will then activate. You return at least 4 of your Lightsworns back into your deck, because you'll have to have at least 4 to have a Judgment Dragon on the field, and of course you would need to use some Lightsworns to summon it, because it's a synchro monster. So you'll have at least 4 in your graveyard, which means if you shuffle back in at least 4 from a Judgment Dragon nuke, you will gain 1200 life points, which will essentially make the cost of Judgment Dragon, it will cancel it out, because you play for 1000, you gain 1200, so you've gained 200, which is okay. I mean, it makes the initial nuke that you do from Judgment Dragon costless, which is nice. But what it mainly does is it returns Lightsworns back into your deck, because once you've actually got a Judgment Dragon on the field, if you can protect it, well, you don't necessarily want to protect it, if you can just win with it, then that's good. But if you can't win with it, and it's just destroyed, then the Lightsworn deck actually suffers from the problem of, oh crap, I've lost my win condition, I could seriously deck out right now. So returning them back into deck is really quite nice and useful. In addition to the fact that this is just a good solid monster, 2600 attack point, level 7 synchro that can just banish a monster for cost of 1000 life points. Nice! But that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this very long video about me talking about Lightsworns. And of course, if you do like the Lightsworns, if you have any kind of opinions or thoughts, do tell me in the comments down below as a video response what you think of them. Like I said, of course, at the beginning of the video, if you want to check out what any of these cards do in any detail, then you go check out links to their Yu-Gi-Oh! Wikipedia pages in the description down below. But that is pretty much it. More videos coming out to you soon. But that's pretty much it. I'm Jack Clark, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Musketeer. More videos coming out to you soon. But until then, goodbye.